everyone, this is Fadi, and we are going to continue today with our video series on Muhammad, a critique. We're going to take a look now at some of the sources that talk about Muhammad, traditionally speaking, Islamic sources in this case, and how the scholars are reacting to these sources. With me here in studio to unpack all of this is Dr. J. Smith. Welcome back, brother.
Thank you. Always good to be working with you. Always good to be talking alongside somebody who actually knows an awful lot where I'm going with this, because we've done this before, but some of the material we're coming up with is new. That's right. Even for you. And let me go to the screen, because these are my initial questions that I need to ask. If you have a new prophet here, Al-Fadi, why do we need a new prophet? We already have a whole litany of prophet. Why do we need a new revelation? We have already the Old and New Testament. More than that, if he is going to choose a new prophet, if God is going to choose a new prophet, here's the question. Why in the world did he choose someone that's not in the prophetic line? Okay? That's right. That's the first question I have. You know, he already said Isaac versus Ishmael. Isaac he will bless, he will have his covenant with. Ishmael he will bless, and he'll be the father of 12 sons, or 12 people. But Isaac, his covenant is with Isaac.
That's right.
What's more, what in the world did this man do, did Muhammad do to prove that he was a prophet? He did no miracle, he did no prophecy. That's the two things every prophet should do. He didn't receive a revelation that we know of that's equivalent to what has come before. His revelation contradicts the previous one over and over again. Look at that. Even the prophetic line is contradictory. Look at the person of Allah or God in both revelations. It's two completely different God, and certainly two completely different Jesuses. So why would God completely contradict what he had said earlier? And how is it he would appoint a man who didn't even know who he was? He had no idea of God's holy name. If you're a prophet, you know what God you represent.
That's right.
All the other prophets knew that. 6,823 times you will see that name all through the Old Testament. Jesus knew that. He even appropriated that name for himself in John chapter 8, verse 58. So when we go back, that's the first question I have. Why did God choose such an inadequate prophet? Secondly, why did he choose the Arabic language to bring this revelation in when he already had previous languages? He had Hebrew. He also had Greek. They were perfectly adequate. Why did he use a language that was so coarse, that was so new, and so inadequate to even read? Remember that. Back then, the Arabic in the 7th century only had 16 consonants. Today, it now has 28. Because dots and vowels had not yet been invented. It was way too early. If God were wise, he would have waited until the dots and vowels were introduced so we would know exactly what his revelation said. That's why we have 30 different Qurans, because of the fact that dots and vowels were finally created. So to me, these are questions that need to be asked. Since he already had these languages, why then do a new prophet that knew nothing about him and a new revelation that doesn't come from anything he's done before? And then, why did God choose someone who is illiterate, for heaven's sakes? For heaven's sake, if you're going to choose someone that can at least read what they're having written down.
Or at least show a miraculous work in his life and let him learn how to read or write.
And that's my next question. Why in the world didn't he learn to read, for heaven's sakes? Yeah. Listen, he had 22 years. He already knew Arabic. I didn't know Arabic, and it took me 2 weeks to learn how to read and write it. It doesn't take very long to learn 28 letters. He only needed 16 letters at his time. He had 22 years to do so.
Yeah, and by the way, you know that Al-Tabari critiqued many of the Quranic words and claimed that it was embarrassment to the language of Arabic. So that tells you something.
That tells you something right there.
Right.
So these are huge questions, and these are questions that we need to ask. Let's go back to the slide again. And so you can understand why the scholars are concerned. Here's their first concern. If much of the Islamic history was created so late, then number one, why in the world did it take so long to write it down? Were these people not literate? Of course they were literate. Just take a look at all the places that are included in this history. Look at places like Basra and Baghdad and Damascus, Jerusalem, Cairo, all of these areas, Spain, India. By the time that Umar reigns, all of those first countries come to power. By the time you get to the time of Abd al-Malik in the late 7th century, you had from Spain in the west all the way to India in the east, from Turkey in the north, all the way down to Yemen in the south. Are you saying no one could read and write in all that swath of land?
Exactly, yeah.
What do you do with Egypt, for heaven's sake, that had in Alexandria that had a library in the 5th century that got burned down? What would be in the library? But more than that, hold on a minute. Zayd ibn Thabit. Who is Zayd ibn Thabit?
Well, I mean, he's the one that was commissioned to basically compile the Quran.
So he was a secretary, right?
That's right.
What do secretaries do?
Write down.
Hold on a minute. If he couldn't read and write, then how come the secretary couldn't write it down?
You know what is so interesting, by the way? And I don't want to jump ahead of you, but Arthur Jeffries, by the way, he collected findings about some variant readings of the Quran. Guess who's on that list that has a variant readings? Zayd
ibn Thabit.
There you go.
Introduced by those who come into the very traditions
right.
that had no problem introducing that. So where did the 9th and 10th century compilers get their material from? If no one could read and write, then where did they get their material from? Obviously, the answer is they got it from oral tradition.
Right.
Isnads, they're called. And these are these akhbars that are sent down from word of mouth to word of mouth to word of mouth. And you know what happens when you do word of mouth. You can embellish, accrete, and delete at will. We've done this with Chinese whispers when you ever have a children's birthday party. So you can see these are questions that need to be asked. Let's go back to the slide. So if they are all so late, 200 to 300 years, we're saying that right now. I'm going to shut that down in just a bit. But if they're 200 to 300 years later of oral tradition, should we trust them? Or should we not go back to the time period these things take place? Should we not go back to the 7th century and see what we're finding there? We're going to do that. And I'm not interested in the 9th and 10th century as the Muslims are. I really want to go back to the 7th century. I want to go back to the time period that Muhammad lived, that in a place called Mecca, and the Quran was revealed. Let's go back. And that's why in almost everything that I'm going to say, we need to go back to the original sources. Now, we're going to stop here now. We're going to then go and see what really are the scholars really saying. I have these problems. These are my problems. I want to see what the scholars say, because the scholars have been looking at the same thing I'm looking at, the same thing you're looking at. They're coming up with all kinds of difficulties. People like Dr. John Wansborough and Dr. Patricia Corona and Dr. Michael Cook. These are the scholars who have been going into this. Dr. Arthur Jeffrey that you've referred to. They are finding problem after problem, because as scholars, they've already asked these questions of Christianity. We've had to go through this for the last 200 years. They know what textual criticism is. They know what redacted criticism, form criticism, source criticism. These are the criticisms they're going with, and I'm going to quote from them in the next episode. I'm going to look and see exactly what they say. And they are the ones that are proving that there's a real problem with Islam.
Wonderful. Thank you, brother. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you're finding this video series to be very helpful to you, as always. Until next episode, this is Al Fadi. God bless. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. And ring the bell so you will be notified when we release new content. Our mission is to reach Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ and help Christians engage with their Muslim neighbors. If you want to join us in this life-changing work, please support us on patreon.com/CIRA International, or just click on the link below.